Welcome to Black Men Speak. I'm your co-host, the J.R. Stewart.
And I'm your co-host, the Tommy D. Duncan III, otherwise known as TD3. It is Wednesday, February the 14th, 2024. And if it is Wednesday night,
It's certainly Black Men Speak. So let's give a shout out to Liquid for providing our theme music. If you haven't already, please hit that like button to subscribe to our channel and then share our videos with as many people as possible. If you're here watching live, please invite a friend so you guys will have something interesting to talk about. And also, let's give a shout out to Forest Films in our own studio for supporting the show. With that being said, Tom, I know we have a jam-packed show, so let's do what we do best.
All right, folks, it is time to get this party started right. Of course, every Wednesday we start off with our birthday babies for this week. So if you are born in mid-February or later, you may have a common birthday with the following folks. First, we do have a birthday today. Denai Guerrera. Some folks may kind of remember this face, Jimmy, but if you happen to see the movie Black Panther, you might remember this face as one of those ferocious sisters who was
She's a kick-ass warrior, Tom.
Yes, sir. Fighting on behalf of of course, the Wakanda tribe. And hey, happy birthday to you on February the 14th, Jimmy. And since, of course, it is Black History Month, typically we honor folks who are still with the living, but, one of the all-time greatest freedom rights activists of all times is documented as having a birthday today, Jimmy. The Frederick Douglass is noted to have a birthday on February the 4th, 1818, Jimmy. We're not exactly sure, of course, and I am not exactly sure where we got this other picture from, because it is not, I know exactly what happened here. But at any rate, folks, we definitely want to acknowledge Frederick Douglass, whose birthday is documented as being today, February the 14th. Next, we have the beautiful and very talented Lynn Whitfield, whose birthday is on February 15th tomorrow. Been in a lot of great movies, Jimmy.
Oh, yes, she has.
An extremely talented actress. And on February the 17th, Jimmy, of course, many folks' all-time favorite and considered the GOAT of GOATs, Michael Jordan, February 17th birthday, has a birthday coming up towards the end of this week. So happy birthday, Michael Jordan, coming up.
Yes.
On February the 19th, for those who love music, Seal, the great musical genius.
Rose. Yes.
Absolutely. Seal has a birthday coming up on February the 19th. So happy birthday at the beginning of next week. Any of you
great talent.
Exactly. And last but definitely not least, the artist, entertainer, and businesswoman, Rihanna, has a birthday coming up on February the 20th as well. So we, of course, would definitely like to wish her a happy birthday as well.
Okay.
All right, Jimmy, before we get into our stories for the night, let's make sure that we say hello to our folks on the chat line. We want to thank everyone for joining us. We have Ms. Audrey K. Booker out of the Dallas-Fort Worth area. What's going on, cuz? Thanks for joining us tonight. And our friend and fraternity brother, Kevin Johnson, out of the DC area. Yeah, exactly. Out of the DC metro area. I want to thank you for joining us this evening. And, of course, as other folks join in, as we get our stories lit up, please let us know your thoughts, questions, and observations, and join into the conversation, because as Jimmy always says, it's not just our show. Even though we're pulling in the content, it's your show as well. So let's get ready to get this party started right. I'm also waiting. I think our good friend, brother Asar Al-Kabilan is in the house tonight. We want to thank him for joining us as well. All right, Jimmy, let's get to it. We talked about this last week, and we've kind of been building up into this. And, of course, the biggest game of the year of all sports, the Super Bowl, was this past Sunday. And the Kansas City Chiefs, Jimmy, we finally both got it right. We both agreed on the Kansas City Chiefs. And what a game.
It was a good game.
A game.
I haven't watched the Super Bowl in 20 plus years since the '95, but I watched this one.
What?
And
Are you
mainly,
kidding me? You
I
actually
did.
watched
Yeah, I
it?
watched it. Well, I mean, he's a local kid. I believe from South Lake Carroll or one of those trophy club, one of those cities down there. And of course, he went to Tech, and so he went to high school here in Texas, went to college here in Texas. So mainly because of the Texas connection, is why I watched the game and then actually selected them to pick them to win the game.
Yeah,
But it was a
Jimmy.
great game.
And as we talked about it last week, I mean, both great teams, quite frankly, if we look at it, both teams have great defenses. Both have a very solid run game. Of course, San Francisco 49ers has the best running back in the league with Christian McCaffrey. You have,
He was actually my MVP pick, but
gotcha. Then, of course, the Kansas City Chiefs, you have, I think, probably, the best coach in the NFL right now in terms of play calling and really taking a team that has been great but lost one of its best players last year. Even though, of course, you still have Travis Kelce, you still have a bevy of different quarterbacks. They lost the guy who really spread the field out, but they still got that guy, Patrick Mahomes.
This is the mark of a good coach. Just because you lose a player or two, the wheels don't come off the train like they do.
Unless it's the Dallas Cowboys.
Unless the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, we are so thin at every position. All it takes is just one player to be lost, and our season is gone. So, but then no, Andy Reid is a much better coach than that. You can tell by the way he prepared his team, the way he called his offense, the motion that they use to confuse defenses, and when they have to make plays, Tom, they make them. So they did exactly what they had to do to win the game. And the good thing about it, there was no, after the game, nobody was pointing to the refs saying, that call made a difference here or there. For the most part, they let them play, and which is good. And I mean, really, like I said, two piranhas, fighting it out. And in the end, the best team won.
There were a lot of intriguing storylines during the game. During that first half, of course, San Francisco, pretty much dominated the Chiefs, and they looked shell shocked, in that first half, Jimmy. But at halftime, the game was only 10-3.
Tom, yeah, I was just getting ready to excuse me, interrupt you. Maybe San Francisco did on offense play a little bit better, but the reality is there's only 10-3 at halftime. So how dominant could they have been with a 7-point lead, a 1-score lead? So that just goes to show just how close the teams were, and even being down at halftime 10-3.
And even honestly, up until the latter part of the third quarter, the San Francisco 49ers were pretty dominant. Of course, a lot of folks, you'll have your opinions in terms of what you think about Brock Purdy, whether he's a great quarterback, whether he's just a game manager, or whatever the case is. But, at the end of the day, he played a pretty solid game. Of course, Patrick Mahomes, threw one interception, but, he's somewhat unshakable and unflappable. And at the end of the day, it came down to, one of those teams where you get to the latter half of the game and you wait for the mistakes to happen. Maybe a call here or a call there, an overthrown pass here or an overthrown pass there. And it really literally comes down to the small things. And of course, on San Francisco, they had the muffed punt in the fourth quarter, which really was the beginning of the momentum shift for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Well, Tom, there's another reason you can't leave time on the clock when the opposing team has a great quarterback. And a pretty good offense, and they can make plays. So
there are a few quarterbacks who do that. Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes. If you leave them just a minute and a half or 2 minutes in a game and you give them just one timeout, you got problems.
And on top of that, the 49ers, they were dropping 5 and 6 DBs back. Safeties. They really played to defend. I guess we call it the prevent defense, but sometimes it prevents you from winning the game. But it keeps you from giving up the big play quickly. But it does allow teams to nickel and dime their way down. And then if they find just a crease, an opening in your defense somewhere where they can exploit, like the Chiefs did, then it allows them to get down the field much quicker. So I guess I see the logic in there that maybe I can let you eat the clock up at 5 yards at a time, as long as I don't give up a 20 and 30-yard play. But if you give up a 20 or 30-yard play, then, things are going to look pretty bad at that point. That's what happened. So,
gotcha. We've got a couple of folks who've joined.
Who do we have?
Frederick V. Roberts, Esquire, good evening out of Prairie View, Texas. And happy Valentine's Day to you too as well. Kevin Johnson said, let's leave the Cowboys out of this conversation. I understand, brother. I certainly, of course, KJ is a big Cowboys fan.
But you have to do a compare and contrast, Tom.
And there's somebody
when you comparing a good team to a not so good team, a well-coached team to a not so well-coached team, there are a few examples out there, but we're local, so we grab local first, and so that's the Cowboys. So I'm sorry that we have to hear.
You can't say that the Cowboys are not a good team, Jimmy. They are a good team.
No, Tom. I said coach, manage.
Okay. Gotcha.
They're not very well managed, not very well coached.
Now, when you say not well managed, what does not well managed mean?
Well, we led the league in penalties once again.
Well, this is true.
Teams that do stupid stuff.
I think the Kansas City Chiefs actually were the most penalized team in the league.
I don't think so. They're maybe in the AFC, but I think the Cowboys in the league, total in the league. It's amazing if the Cowboys get out of the game with less than 8 or 9 penalties. So we will consider that a good night when they held like 5 penalties. But Tom, there's a distinct difference between what we have in Mike and then Andy Reeves. There's a distinct difference even between what we have and a Belichick. Belichick teams may not have been very good after the GOAT left, but at least they don't beat themselves with a bunch of penalties. They have enough discipline to at least cut down on the penalties, and we don't even get that from our coach.
Well, this is true, but Facebook user, they have a name on here, but Facebook user says coaches don't play the game, the players do.
Yeah, they prepare the players to play the game, though, and preparation is a lot of it, Tom. You don't prepare properly, then you better hope you're in a weak division like the NFC East, or even the front runner Philadelphia Eagles, fell off the damn track and got exposed for what they are. So the whole NFC East is just, once again, it's just a weak division. It's not a very good division. Well, and we can keep propping up these teams, trying to make them seem like they're more than what they are. But the Cowboys, the Eagles, the Redskins, the Giants, the Cowboys and the Eagles may be a little better than the other doormats in this league. But the NFC East is a doormat for the league, Tom.
I don't know if it's the NFC. There are a couple of divisions, not too many, but there are a couple of divisions who are, pretty piss poor. But I would say that over the last 5 years, they've been pretty solid. But I would be interested in hearing on what our folks on the chat line got to say about the Super Bowl and or about the game and or the Cowboys. Okay, Facebook users, we need to find out who it is. They said the Redskins will be back.
Back what? Back to what? Back to being doormats? I mean, when are they coming back to?
So KJ says New York Jets are the number 1 penalized team in the league, and the Cowboys the number 2 penalized team in the league. Okay,
so there you go. We battling with the Jets for the most penalized. So you're not well coached or well managed when you have that distinction. You just happen to be in a division that's fairly weak. So you get 2 wins against the Giants every year. You get two wins against the Redskins so that's 4 wins right there. That's right. Half your the division. And if you split with the Eagles, that's 5 wins right there, pretty much guaranteed to you. Well, now you got to scrape together some wins against the other doormats in the league.
And we are going to get back to the Super Bowl analysis, but I will have to say this, Jimmy. This year, and I'm just speaking of this year, I'm trying to recall if the Cowboys beat a team other than the Eagles, who we found out.
The only winning team they beat, they had a winning
record. Did they?
Yeah, that was Seattle. And they were only 1 game above 500 when we beat them.
Seattle and the Eagles then.
Yes.
As always, it's Dallas year, and they do nothing with it. That's James, one of my good friends. That's James Baltimore. He is a blue blood Washington, formerly Redskins, now Commanders, fan, dyed maroon and gold. That is my good friend James.
Brother, only advice I can give you, like I give myself this year, because the Cowboys have been fired, is to fire them and select who you're going to cheer for as the season go on. It's time to jump on the bandwagon.
Who are you going to fire, though, Jimmy?
Huh?
Who are you going to fire?
Tom, I refuse to get worked up again, get all worked up, get my hopes up, and have all this energy built up, and then start the season and be fed a bunch of lies about how great we are, how these great players we have, how many all-pros we have, and that this is our year, only to get to the first round of the playoff and realize that we're just fish bait, that we're really not that good, that we've been overhyped all season long. So Jerry and the marketing team, they do a great job at hyping the Cowboys. What they don't do is a great job of preparing the Cowboys for the playoffs. So I'm done with them this year.
They're not built for the playoffs, Jimmy. They've not been built for the playoffs since the 90s. And the other thing is that the Cowboys have a de facto owner and general manager that feels that he can coach through the coach that they have, regardless of how many coaches that they've had. You know, it unfortunately for Cowboys, dyed blue and silver Cowboy fans, it's been the same thing year after year.
And in fact, I think if my history is correct, those damn Chiefs used to be the Texas Chiefs, didn't he? Back in the early days?
The Texans.
The Chiefs.
Who are we talking? Oh, are you talking about they used to? Yes, they used to be. Yes, when they were before they moved to Kansas City.
So we can fire the Cowboys and cheer for our original team from Texas, which is the Chiefs, and not be disloyal to the state.
Yeah.
I'll suggest your friend fire the Redskins to do the same.
Well, the one thing, I'm not going to say that the Redskins are going to come back, but they at least have the distraction Dan Snyder out of the way, so maybe they can take a few years and try to rebuild.
Yeah, except Dan wasn't on the field playing. All I saw Dan was writing big checks to players that he thought was going to come in and turn things around. So Dan did what he thought he could do for an owner to turn his team around.
The thing about it is, Dan, though, he was
but he wasn't a distraction off the field. But he still wrote the checks.
Jerry Jones has written plenty of checks himself.
And Jerry has written plenty of checks too, but Jerry's an interference. Snyder was nothing like Jerry Jones.
Well, I would agree with that. I would have to agree with that. He doesn't get in the way of the coaching. He's not, Dan Snyder wasn't on the in front of the microphone on the television, and really playing the de facto coach as well. So again, when Jerry is serious about getting to a Super Bowl or at least getting to an NFC championship, he'll take his ego out of the way. But until then, I just don't think you've had a chance. I've been saying this for years and years.
Anyway, let's get to our stories.
All right, Jimmy. Let's finish out the Super Bowl, and then we'll go out to our next story. But at the end of the day, and it's amazing that as good as last year's Super Bowl was with the Chiefs and the Eagles, and that was a great Super Bowl, we forgot about it because of how great this Super Bowl is. Going to of course, sudden death overtime. And I think this is the first time under the new rules that we have for the Super Bowl where you actually play in an additional additional game, or it's literally a new game. Both teams get a shot at scoring. What I'm confused about, how does a coach not understand the rules? And he talks about getting the ball, taking the ball, and getting a shot on the third possession. I was confused about that because he didn't even understand the rules, which made no sense to me. Made him look pretty silly.
I'm not sure what you're talking about.
Well, when they went into overtime, Shanahan, the 49ers ended up getting the coin toss to go to their side.
Right.
They ended up taking the ball, giving the Chiefs the opportunity to, regardless of whether they kicked a field goal, scored a touchdown, or whatever it is, get the ball left. You never do that. And so in the interview after the game, after they kicked a field goal, and then that man went down and scored a touchdown, he mentioned something about getting the third possession and being able to take the ball down from there. He didn't realize that after you get the ball, exactly. And I was like, dude, you're the coach.
Well, Tom, I think he was thinking that that somehow you were actually going to play another game, and that somehow when all 4 quarters were exhausted. So I'm not sure what he was thinking, but yes, you're gonna play another game until someone scores.
Right.
And at least both teams had a chance to possess the ball, unless there's a turnover and the defense scores and game's over.
You
but
kick the ball.
Not sudden death.
You kick the ball.
You'll play up to 4 quarters until someone scored.
Exactly.
And or at least someone scored, and both teams had at least one possession.
Yeah.
So the rules were new. Even I was sitting there thinking, oh man, they taking their sweet dear time when the clock is running out, not realizing that they have a whole nother game.
Exactly.
So the clock wasn't the issue. They just would have played another quarter.
And that's what the referee said. It is a new game.
Yes. So
it is not a new quarter. Not a new quarter, not 2 possessions. It is a new game. And I'm like, you're the coach, man. You're supposed to know this.
Yeah,
and
you should know that.
He should have kicked the ball so he could have control over what his team was going to do. If Kansas City goes down there, score a touchdown, they know they've got to score a touchdown. But they put themselves at an advantage. They went down.
Well, Kansas City did have the advantage because they had 4 downs at that point. They had nothing to lose. So there's no plan is safe for them. They knew they had 4 downs They just had 4 downs, period, because they were behind by a field goal. So there was no choice but to go down the field, either kick a field goal or score and win the game. That was it. There was no punting. It was an opportunity. There was no chance they were ever going to punt the ball.
Right. And then, of course, unfortunately, they had a blown assignment. They let Chris Jones get to Brock Purdy. I think it was on a 3rd down, and he ended up having to throw it out of bounds. They had to kick a field goal, and then it was all in the hands of number 15. And that's it. That's it.
That's where the cookie crumbles.
Yes, sir. So, at any rate, all that being said, congratulations to the Kansas City Chiefs Nation.
To Texas Chiefs. Congratulations.
And, of course, to Patrick Mahomes. I mean, he is the best quarterback in the league. And, of course, to Andy Reid. And quite frankly, I've been an Andy Reid fan even when he was coaching the Eagles. Even though I wasn't an Eagles fan, I like the way that he coached his team. I like the way that he gave players an opportunity that probably would not have had an opportunity otherwise, vis-a-vis Mike Vick when nobody else would touch him, vis-a-vis who is the quarterback, Donovan McNabb from Syracuse. And the Philadelphia fans were booing when they picked him in the draft, but guess what? They didn't win, but at least he got them to a Super Bowl.
All right.
All that being said, let's get out. Let's go to our next story. We'll talk very briefly about this, Jimmy. Of course, congratulations to Lamar Jackson. He wins his 2nd NFL MVP honors after having a great season. Of course, I know your choice was Christian McCaffrey. I think Dak Prescott was 2nd in the votes, and then Christian McCaffrey was 3rd in the votes. And so, of course, congratulations to him on a great year. Unfortunately, he didn't get to the big dance and lost to a better quarterback. And quite frankly, they lost to a better team in the AFC Championship. But the narrative, Jimmy, is that even when he was drafted, that he wasn't even a quarterback. He fell to the 32nd slot. I believe it was in 2018 when he was drafted. They were trying to get him to run the 40 because they want him to play receiver. They said that he wasn't NFL caliber, NFL ready. They suggested that he didn't have the type of football IQ to play NFL at a high level in the NFL. And all he's done is he's won 2 NFL MVPs. And at the end of the day, Jimmy, I'm happy for him. I hope he does well. Hopefully he gets to the next level in the league and or has a prosperous career. I think obviously he had a couple of years where he was injured. He missed a lot of games, Jimmy, but now he's back. and hopefully he will continue to have a very long and prosperous career.
Well, Tom, I mean, that's true, but then you also have to keep in mind that a good coach will take the talent that he or she has and make it work. So you don't always get to line up all superstars on your team. So sometimes you have to make superstars out of them by putting them in position to be successful. And so if you have to shape your offense or run plays that fits the style of your running back. Obviously, when he first came into the league, he wasn't a pocket quarterback. He was a running quarterback who could throw the ball. So, but he made the throws he had to make. He made the runs he had to make. And so now he's more of a pocket quarterback, um, who runs. So I would say he's more pocket quarterback now who can run the ball as opposed to a runner who throws the ball. And so he's a great talent. And all this about reading defense is, I think that's highly overrated because defenses now shift. There is no such thing as reading the defense. It's hard to know what a defense is doing when they line up because they drop in and out of coverage, they drop in and out of zones and commands. They're constantly shifting. No one is letting you read the defense before you hike the ball. They set up one way, and by the time you hike the ball, they've already shifted the defense to something else. So you have to be able to make decisions on the fly, and you do not win MVP if you cannot think on the fly. So all these critics that say you can't read defenses, you don't become MVP if you can't make a quick decision as to what the defense is doing and how to exploit it. They just don't give that trophy away. Although I know Dak had a pretty good season, but still, if they base that trophy on what a person did in the playoffs, then neither one of them would be 1 and 2 probably wouldn't be in consideration. I think McCaffrey probably would have won it based on his playoff performance.
Obviously, he did win the regular season MVP, and somebody else won the other MVP, and that would happen to be number 15.
So, okay.
But we got a couple of folks on the line. Ed Gray, the commish from the Commish Radio Show. Good evening, my good brother and friend. Welcome tonight to the show as well. And, we got another comment from a football fan. Lamar the new Romo, as in Tony Romo, can't win the big game. Well, what we do know is this. Tony Romo never got to the NFC Championship.
You know what? You got to stand in line because we got our own Romo. It's called Dak. So so I can't cry over Lamar getting to a championship game when our Romo can't even get us out of the first round of the playoffs.
True. So what we can't say about Lamar Jackson is he got him to the AFC Championship. What we can say is he got 2 NFL MVPs. I don't think Romo got one of those, and
And on top of that, Tom, we have Dak. We've had Romo and the original Romo, Danny White.
Oh, come on. Don't hate on Danny White.
How many championships rings does Danny have? I'm sorry. Did I miss something?
0.
Did I stutter? Okay,
0.
so yeah, Danny White was the original Romo, but we've had Romo, we've had the original Romo.
Now, wait a minute. Is Danny White the original Romo, or is Romo the new Danny White?
You know what? That's probably right. So we have the original Danny White, the new Danny White, the new Danny White. So you got to stand in line. We can't cry for your Danny White or your Romo when we had those on this team and we've suffered through for the last 28 years.
Gotcha. All right. Cuz said, okay, this is a very long sports topic, so we're right at about 8:30, so we can go ahead and get to the other stories. But we had to do the Super Bowl. Let me see here. Jimmy says I'm bad for being a Redskin. Hey, God bless her. Hopefully, let me see. The Redskins, well, not the Redskins. The Commanders do have a new coach, so maybe Dan Quinn can help them out. We'll see.
Tom, all I'm saying is just don't build up all your hope energy during the off season, and so just wait. Take a wait and see attitude. Before that's what I'm going to do. I'm not getting all worked up this year with the Cowboys. I'm going to take it game by game and make my decision, and whether I'm going to cheer for them or criticize them week after week. So they're going to have to earn.
Until Jerry gets out the way, Jimmy, you've got no chance.
Well, Tom, you know what? Somebody may get hurt. Sometimes
unless Jerry gets hurt, Unless Jerry gets hurt and stops getting in front of the camera, you ain't got a chance.
So I'm taking my admiration for the Cowboys week by week, and if they don't get it done, they're gonna force me to go find a new team.
All right,
so
Jimmy.
Anyway, what's our next news story, Tom?
All right, Jimmy. Our next show, and I know you probably have a soft spot for this, Jimmy, given some of our prior conversations. But you know, in January 2024, just last month, Georgia-based Popeyes Franchisee, not the holding company, but
Copeland Enterprise.
Yeah, actually, it is the Restaurant Brand International that is the parent company for Popeyes and Burger King, for that matter. But the Georgia-based Popeyes Franchisee, RRG, filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, and they operate about 17 Popeyes locations in a multi-unit holding company. And this is following the bankruptcy of another organization, Premier Cajun Kings, which filed for bankruptcy in March 2023 after the death of its owner. And industry experts, and I know you're a big Popeyes fan, Jimmy, so we had to talk about this for a little bit. Many other experts feel that this is really kind of them being a victim of their own success from the pandemic. As we know, when the pandemic hit, you know, a lot of folks changed their habits, and a lot of the franchising and, of course, entrepreneurship expanded and grew after COVID. But a lot of these franchisees and our larger companies, not just for Popeyes, but for other franchisees, borrowed a lot of money. Of course, that's when interest rates were still pretty low, Jimmy, but over the last year or so, interest rates have gone up significantly. And as a result, the cost to borrow money in order to build and keep these franchises afloat, especially for operating capital, has, you know, doubled and even tripled since then, Jimmy. So it is been a cash flow issue and a profit margin issue for a lot of these franchises caused by labor shortages.
You know how you take care of cash flow issues?
I know what your answer is going to be.
Yeah, you get more customers through the door. This is a sad testament that in America, where I'm not, well, I know in Texas barbecue is king, but you can easily make an argument that chicken is king around the world, and especially Popeye's chicken, that a Popeye's chicken franchise is going out of business and they can't even sell chicken. Tom,
it's not that they can't sell chicken, Jimmy. It's
they can't sell enough to stay in business, Tom. That's a piss poor economy that we in, and we keep making
excuses. It's not a piss poor economy, Jimmy.
It's a poor economy, yes. So this is another reason that you need to vote your chicken interest come November, because this president is putting the chicken franchises out of business with his policies. Come on, Tom. Chicken, Popeye's chicken is going out of bankruptcy. Chicken, Tom. We're not talking about Weems chicken. We're not talking about Hall's chicken. We're not talking about Ruby's chicken. We're talking Popeye's chicken. The original Louisiana spicy chicken.
But you know what? I'm going to lean onto one of your old truisms, and that is putting enough of your own money into the business where you're not having to leverage yourself out of business. And that is what has happened, unfortunately, with this. I mean, and we're not talking about all of them across the board. We're not talking about the parent company. We're talking about a couple of pretty significant companies that run.
Is it Chapter 7 or Chapter 11
bankruptcy? Chapter 11.
Okay, so they'll reorganize. Hopefully, close a few, keep the ones that are profitable open.
And it was primarily, I think it was 3 or so of them that really put them underwater. It wasn't the entire operation, but it was 3 of them that put them underwater. But obviously, you know, a couple of them, you know, in addition to some of the Burger King franchises, you know, over the last couple of years, as operating costs have gone up, I mean, everybody knows that it's very difficult to find labor. Nobody wants to work. And so as a result, it's hard to sell stuff when you don't have, I mean, Jimmy, I remember this. When I was traveling quite a bit, you couldn't go on the inside, Jimmy. Why not? You didn't have enough people to sell on the inside. And so literally you had to go through the drive-through in order to get chicken. And then it was taking 15, 20 minutes in order to get your food. I would just get out and leave because I couldn't wait 15 or 20 minutes.
Well, Tom, I don't know if you heard, but, you know, California have already implemented $15 an hour minimum wage in their state for fast food places, and there's some talk they're trying to get to $50. As if you're supposed to be able to raise a family of 4 off of flipping burgers at McDonald's. But the burger industry has an advantage because they found a way to automate some of the burger making process to make a burger. Tom, you can't automate chicken making. I mean, that's a dip in flour, dip in grease. That's a manual process that you're not going to be able to automate, period. You're going to need people. And if you can't find the workers after paying them $15 to $20 an hour to make chicken,
these folks don't want to work. They don't want to show up on time. They ask you about their policy for being at work on time, Jimmy. There are some serious problems today.
Well, Tom, you know what? This may be an opportunity then for maybe a fan. Well, maybe that's why we let in 10 million immigrants across the border to replace the labor force.
I guarantee you, they're willing to work.
Yeah, some of those 10 million are willing to take that Popeyes job and make the chicken.
Jimmy, don't you know that's why big business is letting these folks in through these big holes so that they can get somebody to work? Because they're willing to work sub-minimum wage. And that's stuff that other folks are not willing to do. Even if they're paid a fair wage, they don't want to work.
Tom, $15 to $17 an hour to do fast food. I mean, that's $30,000 to $35,000 a year for someone who's not skilled. My first job out of first professional job working at TXU with an engineering degree was $22,000 a year. And you telling me a person can make $35,000 a year now with no skill? Come on. What's wrong with this whole system?
Well, okay, there are a couple of comments that we have on here. JB, I have an issue with this because during the pandemic, they were open, that is Popeyes. They had plenty of people working for them. They took the loans and burned it on crap. I blame the CEO for this crap. All pandemic people were buying, so I don't see why they went wrong other than greed. Grace Line Community, I think that's Edward. That may be Edward. I'm not exactly sure. Grace Line Community, franchisors, parent company increased supply prices on their franchisees exponentially. It has become very difficult to pass those costs onto the consumers.
I agree.
And let's be very clear. The cost of getting just basic fast food, it ain't cheap. It's not like in the old days. Jimmy, you get a couple pieces. You get a couple of pieces of chicken. Jimmy, when we were coming up, you could get 2 pieces of pepper for 99 cents. Jimmy, that costs about $8 a day.
What is wrong with this picture when I can go to Applebee's and get a big burger, fries, and some chips and queso for $10.99, and the jumbo combo meal at McDonald's is $12?
It costs about the same to eat inside than going through a drive-through now. It's maybe a couple of dollars difference, but not that significant.
I mean, McDonald's used to be known for some decent food that was cheap. It's not cheap anymore, Tom. Not all these places now is like $15 to get something through fast food. You know, and so you still have some restaurants that serve you a meal for $12, and they have better quality food. So, but I agree that the franchise price to buy, I don't know what it is. I'm pretty sure it's $1 million plus, construction, everything else for a Popeyes franchise. So I would suggest, even though Chick-fil-A doesn't allow you to own multiple Chick-fil-A's, but Chick-fil-A with a $10,000 investment is much better to go through their process. And they just want you to run it and be family owned. They don't allow you to own 17 of them, or you do it yourself, Tom. You do the Rubies or the Halls or the what's the other, or Williams.
Yep. Yep. We got a couple of comments. Karen Powell, welcome, and thank you for joining us this evening. I know it's relative to the area. In-N-Out Burger is paying $24 an hour in LAX, but LA is a completely different market.
$24 an hour for an unskilled person to make a hamburger?
Do you know how expensive it is to live?
I know, Tom, it is very expensive there, but still, how much is the burger? The burger's going to cost you $40 at some point with those kind of wages.
Just saw hiring sign on my last visit to LAX. My daughter's friend is saving up for college. James, the Baltimore, this is what I hate. I've stopped going to McDonald's because I'm tired of seeing the sign over 2 billion served, but the wages weren't raised. Greed, corporate greed.
Well, you know what? It's going to be a long time before you see 3 billion served. So,
yeah, what was the Michael Douglas statement in the movie? Greed is good.
Yes. Yeah, Tom. I mean, the way we're going, if we don't turn the curve on energy, on production, and get inflation under control, a burger's going to cost you $20,
Yeah.
$30 trying to keep up. And I understand that people need money to live off of, and inflation is just a reverse tax on the poor and working people. The government doesn't take it from you; they just print out more money and make your money cheaper. Well, you need more of it to live, and so in the end, this is a vicious cycle in people's lives. And so all I can say is, come November, you've already lost chicken. How much more do we have to lose before we end up with a $40 hamburger dealing with the current administration? So something has to give.
Well, I tell you what, for those who've been investing in the market, you've got a pretty good story the last couple of years. So I hope you've been putting some money in those 401ks, because even though some might complain that the economy is doing horrible, the folks who've been investing, y'all have been doing pretty good.
You know what, Tom? I'm going to say good for those folks. I've been living off some investments myself when my government contracts went away. So I'm thankful for that. But until you actualize those profits, then it's just on paper. And that paper can come, that paper can go.
But at least they're there. At least they're there.
So I would say, if you're doing well, there's nothing wrong with turning over some of your portfolio and actualize the profit before it evaporates and something happens and it evaporates. So that's just I'm not an investment person. I don't give investment advice, but I will give you that advice for what it's worth. To go ahead and actualize some of those profits while the taking is good.
You know what? And you bring up a very good point, Jimmy, because I mean, our indexes and our markets and a lot of the blue bloods and blue chip stocks are at their all-time highs. There's only so long that that's going to be sustainable before there's a correction in the market. So again, we are not investment advisors. We are not giving you advice. Just make sure that you're watching your money, because every bull market has an end. Of course, you go into a bear market, but ultimately, Jimmy, if we look at it,
when you go into a bear market, Tom, be bullish. Do not sell and liquidate. Don't panic like everyone else and start liquidating and getting out. That's the time to take every penny you have and get bullish and buy while it's cheap.
While it's at their highs, we're not giving advice. While it's at their highs, to Jimmy's point, consider liquidating some of that. But when it gets low, that's when you should be all hands in buying quality companies.
Correct.
At cheap prices. Quality companies, not junk. Quality at cheap prices.
Yeah, buy low and sell high. Stick to that formula. It always works.
But it is very emotional, Jimmy, and you got to try to hold on for dear life. Oh my God, is it going to go back up? And then you lost 30, 40%, of the value in a particular stock. But as long as it is a quality stock, then Jimmy, if you can hold on, as long as you don't absolutely need that money, then you should be okay over time.
I'm gonna tell you, Tom, I'm a bad news investor. Yeah. Every time somebody make their earnings reports, every time it could be some tech company, that didn't make their earning projections, and then the whole market just drops. Well, what does one tech company got to do with the whole market? But that's the way it goes. So I try to invest on bad news. When things are going south, that's the best time to be jumping in, because if you sit there long enough, it's going to rebound. But when things do rebound, hey, I like to take my profit and have my money in hand, waiting for the next bad news cycle to hit. So
you're like the old bad news bears, huh?
Yes, I'm a bad news investor.
All right, good
Walmart, IBM, Microsoft, all the big companies, when they don't meet in earnings, the whole market goes south. That's the best time to be putting your buy orders in. So, and then just sit back and wait. And then when there's some good news and things are doing well, that's the best time to be trying to get out and hold on to some cash, waiting for the next bad news to hit.
Gotcha.
So,
all right.
anyway, what's our next story,
Let's
Tom?
go to our next story.
And if you want to send me a commission check for that great advice I just gave you, it's thejrstore.com.
All right. A Pew survey recently conducted with over 4,700 African-American participants surveyed their definition of success, how they define it, how they view themselves, and their concerns about having to achieve that success. Interestingly enough, and again, there are close to 50 million African Americans in the United States, but this was a decent-sized survey by Pew, stating that 66% of those in the survey considered themselves to be at least somewhat successful. 26% surveyed described themselves as very or extremely successful. Of course, folks with higher incomes were more likely to say they were very or extremely successful. The majority of the participants characterized success. They characterize success as providing financially for their families, having personal happiness. Actually, 82% define success as providing for their families, 80% having personal happiness, 65% saying having some leisure time, vacation time, 56% said they actually enjoyed their work, owning their home, 52%, and then helping others. At least half of them said that success defined by them were being able to help others. Some others said being debt free, having disposable income, etc. About 35% of the responders chose early retirement as being a definition of that success, while 22% selected business ownership as a benchmark for success. And I know you won't be surprised by this, Jimmy, but Black women were more likely than Black men to say being debt-free, passing down financial assets, and being able to retire early are essential to their success.
Well, the Black women are the most successful group in America. It's been that way for probably the last 20 years, so they're on the rise, them and the Asian population. But Tom, Black folks have a different meaning and view. We have a different outlook on success. We have a different outlook on a lot of different things, on weight standards. We think is skinny or thick or fat, P-H-A-T. The way you look at the world,
P-H-A-T, Jim.
Yeah, P-H-A-T is a little different than the rest of the world, how they define fat or overweight or obese. So it doesn't surprise me that the way we look at wealth and wealth creation and accumulation is going to be different also. Tom, until we catch up with Asians who are 1/3 of our size and have 3 times more money than us, then we are behind. I'm not even sure that I think the Hispanics have, as a group collectively, have surpassed Black people on the wealth scale. Population-wise and on the wealth scale. So we are the low man on the totem pole here in America, in a country that we help make great. And so until we get to a point where we at the proper sitting in place at the table where we should be, then we're an abject failure. It doesn't matter how much a few of us have. Collectively, we should have a lot more than what we have, Tom. And with $1.6 trillion, even during COVID, of money that we just give away to other groups, make other groups rich, 95+% of our money, less than 1% of our money goes to a Black-owned business. All of our money goes out to other groups. So there's no way we can catch up with other people, Tom. If you have $100 to borrow from our frat brother, Tony Brown, if you have $100 and I have $100, you give me $95 of your $100, I have $195. Now you have $5. There's no way you could live as large as I do. Your kids can't even be as educated as me. You can't even be as intelligent as I am, giving all your money away. So that if the fact that a few Black people have a few dollars and they think they're doing well, when the Asians have snuck into the country and have become the most successful group in America, and we're still chasing the second place guy, white folks, when we need to be setting our sights much higher, Tom, and we can do better than what we're doing. It's all excuse making as to why we don't do it when we have the money to free ourselves. It's something that we have to deal with internally and be willing to fix our own problems.
Gotcha. Now, very, very interesting and salient points. We got a couple of other folks on the chat line. Ms. Tanya Hall.
Tanya in the house.
Exactly.
Waiting for my pie.
Yep.
Tanya. Hint, hint.
And also Lancelot Russell as well. So welcome to the show as well. And I would like to hear from some of our folks on the chat line, or folks not on the chat line who would like to jump on, is what your definition is success as well compared to what the survey says. So Lancelot has a couple of things. I believe he says, I'm retired at 34. Absolutely. Congratulations. I'm not in the survey. Yeah, there were only 4,700 folks, so they probably didn't get to you. And
4,700 is a pretty large survey.
Yeah, it is. It is. It is.
That's a large sample size for a national survey.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, I mean, for what it's worth, I would agree that even though the surveys had to be done individually, you have to look at collectively on the big picture. We've talked about this several times, Jimmy. Collectively, we are on the bottom of the totem pole financially. We know that money is
at the bottom of the barrel, Tom.
Not absolutely everything, but this is the other thing. We are the least likely to employ our own folks. We don't control the economics of our community. So when you go to predominantly African-American communities, you have predominantly other folks who are running the business, which is very unique in our country, because typically when you go to Chinatown, you are going to have, well, even though it may be Chinatown, Vietnamese, etc., typically you are going to have folks of that ethnic group that are controlling the small businesses, the fuel stations, the small grocery stores, things of that nature. You know, when you go to Little Mexico, usually you are going to have their shops controlling their economic interests in the town. But we are in a very dubious and unique situation that with a few exceptions, and that is a few exceptions, Jimmy, typically in our neighborhoods, and there are some structural factors behind that, other folks are running the businesses and
we have Asians, we have Koreans running the business,
the income and the economy.
So I'll give you this. In the this was in a Forbes article, a Wall Street Journal just last week. The majority of white people work for a white company. Majority of Arabs in America work for an Arab company. The majority of Hispanics in America work for a Hispanic company. The majority of Asians in America work for an Asian company. The majority of Black people don't work for Black companies.
Correct. That's correct. Right.
You know, and so Tom, we can't even be in that conversation about success until some of these things change, until we employ more of our people, we control our local economies. Are you telling me that Asian folks can go down into South Dallas, in the heart of Black Dallas, America, and set up a hair shop and a Chinese restaurant and do well, and collectively Black folks can't do the same?
Well, they can, Jimmy, but at the end of the day, it's called a code of conduct. Because let me be very clear, and I think we both know this. If you and I were to go shut up shop in Chinatown, we'd be out of business within a couple of months.
Oh, yeah, we wouldn't get 2 customers.
Exactly. And so it's called a code of conduct.
Yeah, the Asian folks in Chinatown wouldn't give us $2 for whatever we were serving, especially when we were in there trying to serve Chinese food. But, you know, but other groups can come into Black areas and set up shop, and we patronize them. We support them. You know, we buy hair from them. We buy supplies. We buy food from them. We buy all of our products that somehow, you know, we could be supplying ourselves. And I still, Tom, I'm still a little bothered by the fact that Black farmers don't get their fair share of not growing food, not raising food from the USDA, and don't have outlets and distribution outlets for their food. And somehow we have food deserts in the Black area. We haven't decided to come together with the Black farmer and Black food stores to do something about the food deserts that exist.
Well, you're right, Jimmy, but, you know, that is, you know, going pretty far up the food chain in terms of really looking at who's getting money and who isn't. I know that, you know, I've seen several articles on how, you know, African-American farmers, they just, quite frankly, don't get some of the same services and or capital that some of their counterparts in other communities get.
We know they don't. We've covered the story too many times, right. And this is still going on. This has been going on since the New Deal on the FDR.
Correct.
Black farmers have never, ever gotten their fair share out of the government. You know, other farmers can be paid not to grow food, to help stabilize prices.
And put a pin in there so everybody can hear that. They get paid not to grow food.
Not to grow food. You know, but Black farmers don't get checks not to grow food. They either grow and find a way to sell it or they go under. And so, we're not, I would like for our government to be fair. So something else to think about when you give your vote to somebody, to ask them what they're going to do about it. But the other thing, Tom, is that we have a wild hog epidemic here in Texas. People shooting thousands of hogs a day, but yet the price of bacon is sky high, more than steak. So, once again, we have food that's available, it's not even processed. Black farmers that can't bring their food and their products to market, and we have food deserts in the Black community. And somehow, our concern is the orange man. We need to be concerned about economic development. If you have a few dollars that you can spare, come together with brothers and sisters. Let's all come together, put whatever little few dollars that we can afford that we can spare, that we don't need, not your rent money, not your house money, not your car money, that you can afford to invest into opening up your own grocery store. Then we can reach out to some farmers and say, look, we'll buy up all the pigs that you can raise. The way our folks like pork and chicken, we'll buy them up, especially with Popeyes chicken going under. We may need to open up a new fried chicken place. Who knows? But Tom, we can solve this and do right by our own people and keep a lot of that money within our community, employ some of our people without having to always be on our knees begging white people in the government for liberation. And at some point, when we stand up and free ourselves, other people will value us and respect us, which is primarily what Black folks want, what we always wanted, is just to gain respect to white people. And so if you want them to stop looking upon you as a basket case, then do something for yourself. Show them that you can operate without them, without their money, that we can do this ourselves. And guess what? Maybe then they become your new best friend.
All right. Why don't we get to a couple of comments that we have here before we have? We only got a couple minutes. We got Ms. Audrey Cake Book of Success. And we did ask that success is the definition of how you see yourself within and your own happy space for you, not mirroring others' achievements. Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Audrey Cake. Very, very good. Kevin Johnson, great point and question. Should we not buy from other nationalities that have businesses in our community? Should we have a code to abide by?
Yes. Tom, obviously, should they buy from us when we when we sub shop in their neighborhoods? Is it wrong for them not to patronize our businesses?
Correct.
And then I'm reminded of the verse from Porgy and Bess when the Black character says, "I got plenty of nothing, and nothing is plenty for me." Well, Tom, we got to get out of just being happy in how we view ourselves. There are real measurements. Happiness is a personal thing in how you see yourself. But Black folks have done without for so long that sometimes we don't need a whole lot to be happy. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be out trying to get as much as we can get. If you don't want it for yourself, then get it for someone else. Get it for your other brother or sister. Maybe you don't need the money, but create a job for someone who can't go to corporate America and get a job. We were talking about earlier off show, I know we didn't bring this up when we were talking about Lamar Jackson and his endorsement deals, how he's the only MVP, two-time MVP now, who doesn't have any major endorsement deals.
Correct.
You know what? But the Black-owned companies out there are not knocking on his door either to give him an endorsement deal. So,
let me answer this as well. We got maybe a couple of minutes before we have to shut everything down for the night, but we have no choice if we're going to survive to abide by a code of conduct. At the end of the day, Jimmy, if we're going to be able to feed ourselves, clothe ourselves, take care of our families, and control our economy, then we have no choice than to have a code of conduct. And they say charity starts at home. Every other group that has thrived survives by a code of conduct, whatever that looks like. And I don't think that we are no different.
Tom, we have a very successful group up here in Collin County with the Asian population. And the last numbers I saw a few years ago was that in their communities, Tom, money turns over 34 times before $1 leaves.
That's amazing.
$1 goes into their community. It ripples into $34 of economic activity before $1 leaves. We know in the Black community, every dollar is a straight line out of the community into other people, in the hands of other people. So I think that may answer your question about a code of conduct.
at the end of the day, Jimmy, if we don't do it, no one else will. And we definitely have not, if we don't understand now by waiting on someone else to save you from the hole that you're in, we have no other shot other than to understand that we must, one, reach in order to build our economy, build our families, and build our future.
Well, Tom, the U.S. economy is about $27 trillion, the last number I think I've heard. And we have $1.6 trillion of spending power in the Black community. If we were to get, I don't know, maybe half the number that the Asians in Plano and Collin County are able to achieve, we're looking at for every dollar that we have turn into 16, turn it over 16 times. Tom, we'll be a $20 trillion nation just in the Black community. That would make us probably the second only to the U.S. as far as wealth. So
and
we have the money.
What that means is if we don't have it, build it, create it. I mean, we've talked about this several times before, Jimmy. Our ancestors coming out of chattel slavery started from absolutely nothing and built economies. Now we're not going to go about into what the U.S. Government did to destroy all of those economies, but they started from nothing.
But we can learn from our mistakes from the past, Tom. Those people were a lot less powerful to protect themselves against the government and systemic racism. We're a lot freer now, and we can learn from the past to not let it happen again. So we really don't have any excuse not to build wealth, except we don't want to do it. And it's easier to talk about the pains of it, of not doing it, than rather than do it. So I would once again say what you just said. Let's take whatever little money we have. This is going to take the middle class, because the Black wealth class is not going to do it. They're not coming back to free anybody. They love the distance they have between themselves and the middle class Black folks. So middle class Black people are going to come together and do what we've always done, which is pool our wealth to grow a little bit and then go from there. And we can do this, people.
With that being said, Jimmy, we are out of time. I got one more. There are a couple of more other comments on here. We'll shut it down. Currently, we don't own grocery stores. True. Movie theaters. I know that Magic Johnson has
a few
theaters, gas stations, retail, etc. Do we just survive without? No, I believe we build. I mean, we start, and I think part of it is someone talked about this not too long ago, Jimmy, is gentrifying our own communities, not allowing other folks to so-called gentrify our communities or raise the value of our communities that are predominantly Black. We have to be about doing that, and then being about building those small business and economies that build not a neighborhood, just folks, places where you live, but a community, which means that you have a fully insular economic enclave of folks that support you, employ you, control your education, control your police department, so we're not having these conversations, et cetera, et cetera. Facebook, what does a Black person sell in Chinatown? I don't see Asians at Rudy's or Sweet Georgia Brown's.
You know what? That's not correct. Look in the kitchen at Sweet Georgia Brown. Look who's cooking the food.
I thought those were Latin Americans.
Latinos. I know we own the place.
Those are Mexicans, not Asians.
Okay, non-Blacks are back there cooking the food. I know we own the place, but but still, there's some Chinese places in the Black community that we support, and the hair care products, and the 7-Eleven, and the convenience stores. So there are a lot of foreign-owned businesses. When I say foreign, I don't mean non-American. I mean non-Black. That in the Black communities that provide goods and services, and there are very few Black-owned businesses in those same areas.
Correct. Got another comment from Karen Powell. How can a Black supply company compete with an Asian company? That's a question. It's as if Asians have a better network for bulk purchasing. Black people probably buy more here than any other culture of people.
Well, that is true, Tom. You know what? We have a pipeline to cheap labor just like the Asians do. I mean, they can go to India, they can go to China, they can go to other Asian countries. I'm guilty of that myself because I've gone to them to get stuff made. But Tom, we have a whole continent called Africa. And for folks who are looking for jobs, who need opportunities also, that if we can set up the to have them to do the manufacturing there and ship it to America. We can have our own pipeline of cheap goods also.
Yeah, Jimmy, just like the French and the British and the other folks take raw materials from Africa and refine it.
They suck it out, Tom. They just rape that continent.
And sell it back.
They take it out. They rape the continent, Tom. They steal it. It's practically a theft because they don't pay the fair value, market value for it. And then they sell the products back, the refined products back to the folks you just brought the material from.
But Karen, to answer your question, in my opinion, how can a black supply company compete with an Asian company? First and foremost, it goes back to code of conduct. The only reason that we don't compete with Asian companies is we continue to give them all of our money and we don't ask for very much in return. Because let me be very clear, what they will do is they will lock and block you out of their distribution systems. But guess what? We have created multiple millionaires within the Asian community.
Yes.
I see it every day. But just as much as we can create them, we can reverse that trend and create our own. And that's where the code of conduct comes in. All right, Jimmy, we are right at 9:06. We had a couple of minutes over, but I think these were definitely good comments and questions from our chat line. So we'd like to thank everyone for joining into the conversation and extending our conversation for a couple of minutes. And we, of course, hope to see you back next week on Black Men Speak. Jimmy, this went a little bit faster than I expected. Obviously, we spent a little time on the Super Bowl, but still a great conversation.
Yes, it was, Tom. And all I can say is, it's okay for you to join in the conversation a little earlier because you know how long-winded time is and get stuck on something.
I'm the one that's
So I need help sometime with getting him to move on to the next topic.
Jimmy,
y'all help me out here.
Jimmy, you talked for 10 minutes straight. I couldn't get a word in.
Tom, I'm pleading the fifth on this. Where the lawyers at on the chat line? Y'all help me out here. I'm pleading the fifth. I have a right not to self-incriminate. So I'm pointing the finger at my co-host. But y'all come back next week. Please join in the conversation at any point. And like I said, it's not just our show, it's your show also. So if there's something you want to talk about that we're not covering, feel free to throw it out there. We can change direction on a dime. So that being said, Tom, go ahead and close us out while I bring up our exit music.
All right, I'd like to thank everybody for joining us this evening. Great comments by everybody who joined this evening. I want to thank you for continuing to support our show. And then, of course, invite a friend, invite families, invite enemy. Invite an enemy. We'll talk about it and we will challenge everything that comes on here. And we will acknowledge and support what you say because this is for our community. We don't have to have everybody agree with us, but we will respect each other on this show.
Yeah.
Have a good evening.